Hello everyone, Carnasa here, and welcome back to Kerbal Gets Real. We're now in 1970 Part 1. And what we're going to be doing? Well, we're going to be putting up Community Station, also known as the Nest. We're also going to be landing a second crew down at Solidarity Base, and we're going to be sending a new scanner over to Venus. So at the very start of 1970, I'm going to pick up all of the Mars contracts because Demeter works. So we should be seeing that flying in 1971. So now on to the first launch of the 70s. This is going to be Lunar Shuttle number 10, launched on the 2nd of January. And on board we have Karen Richards, we have Valentina Zimmerman, and we have John Watson. All experienced astronauts. So this is just going to be your general crew replacement, a crew rotation of the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. We've got into orbit. We are now on our way over to the moon to go to that magnificent station in low lunar orbit. So we've seen these so many times before. This is the 10th of this mission, Lunar Shuttle number 10 after all. So I don't really know what to say about these anymore, but there you go, we can see we are coming up to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station now, and we are going to dock. Now, we are going to be sending down our second crew down to Solidarity on the 19th of January. So on board this, we have Aspect Fanin, Beastly Pig, and DeSpace Boy. So I've decided for this segment to kind of show how I was messing around in the Alcor pod. I saw someone on Discord saying the ASET IVA props are absolutely amazing. So I kind of just wanted to show what you can kind of do with this. So you can flick all of the buttons in here. You can turn on the lights. You can turn on all of the computer screens. You've got cameras. You've got maps. You've got altimetry scans, everything. It's really cool, and it's such a great way to do an IVA. But there we go. We are now coming down. There is Solidarity, and there is moving my seat around. Because, yeah, it is very cool being inside this Alcor pod. It's fantastic. I'd highly recommend this pod if you don't have it. There we go. We have landed at Solidarity Base, and we have Aspect Fanin coming out. He's going to grab some of those new supplies that we sent down, and then this happened. Yes, Aspect Fanin did get yeeted into the air, and it was rather unfortunate because we didn't have any nitrogen for his RCS pack. So unfortunately, we lost another astronaut for Carnasa Space Agency. Very sad time indeed, but we're going to leave Beastly Pig and DeSpace Boy at Solidarity Base for the next year, just to do some lunar research. So, of course, we lost another astronaut, so I'm going to come in and take away 500,000 funds. So now, a build section. Obviously, I didn't have one of these in the last episode because I just wanted to kind of highlight all of the launches that I did in the last episode, and the feedback was generally people did prefer that, but some people did also say that they did like these build sections as well. So I've included this one, and this is going to be a high-res altimetry scan of Venus. I do have a Venus window coming up this year, so I thought I might as well utilize it. We might as well send something over. I kind of thought after doing this, maybe I should have sent over maybe a communications network as well, so I would have constant communications on the surface of Venus, but I didn't really have time to actually put that together, so we're just sending a scanner over in this transfer window. Something like that will happen in the next one. So basically, this is just going to go to Venus and get a high-res altimetry scan, and one of the reasons why I wanted to show this is there was something special that I wanted to do with this. Unfortunately, it didn't work. The idea was that I was going to launch this on a longsword. We would get either Excalibur or Anduril. We would stick this in the cargo bay. But unfortunately, the actual transfer stage, well, this entire spacecraft was too large to fit into the cargo bay of a longsword. So in the end, I had to go and actually just put it on a generic rocket. So what I do want to do in future is potentially build a new shuttle. And what that new shuttle will be able to do, well, it shall be able to take up spacecraft that we are going to be able to send over to both Mars and Venus. That way, well, we don't have to buy a new launch vehicle every time we want to send over some simple satellites, and that would be great, and it would give our shuttle program an entire new purpose. Because at the moment, well, the only purpose that it really serves is getting a crew of 4 to low Earth orbit, and even a crew of 4, well, they can't stay in low Earth orbit for a particularly long amount of time. Here you go, we are going to get out Longsword Excalibur and see if we can fit this in. Like I did mention, unfortunately, as we are about to see, well, it's just too big. It's too big. We do need to have a bit of an extended cargo bay. I could potentially see if I can extend the cargo bay on Longsword. I'm not sure if it will work. I'm not sure how it will mess around with a center of mass, center of lift, and all of that. And trust me, it took a really long time to fine tune those so that this actually did work. Longsword did work. And yeah, no, I was very, very, very happy indeed when it actually did all work. But I think what I will do is the next time I do attempt to build a shuttle, well, I will include that in the build section, because obviously that's quite an interesting build. Now we're going to be launching Lunar Shuttle number 11 on the 14th of February 1970. It's Valentine's Day, and as a Valentine's Day gift, we're going to be sending Jane Jones, Joseph Marks, and Snake Cake to the ECMS. Once again, just a rotation mission. There we go. We can see that pale blue dot, that blue marble disappearing off into the distance as we make our way over to the moon. There is the ECMS in all of its glory, and just a quick docking. So now, on the 19th of February 1970, well, we're going to be sending Karen Richards, Valentina Zimmerman, and John Watson back home. They didn't really stay at the ECMS for very long, but they had a bit of fun over there. So what I want to do now, rather than doing these missions constantly, I'm going to keep that crew at the ECMS for the next year, hopefully breaking a few milestones and also avoiding all of these Lunar Shuttle missions. So now we're going to turn to the first outsourcing launch of Community Station. This is going to be the Typhoon Logistics module, submitted by Alluro078 over on the Discord. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I probably haven't, but I'm really sorry if I've messed that up. So this has been launched on the 27th of February 1970, on top of a Tranquility launch vehicle. So the Tranquility launch vehicle, if people cannot remember, was the purpose-built launch vehicle for the Tranquility orbiter all the way back in the early 1960s. So what I have done, I have made a few slight edits just to try and make it as efficient as possible, try and bring it up to date as much as possible in line with my other launch vehicles. So we did manage to get into orbit with the Typhoon Logistics module, although I did have an issue with this craft. Unfortunately, there wasn't the correct RCS fuel, or there wasn't any RCS fuel placed in the actual module. So yeah, it was gonna be impossible to dock this thing, so I blew it up. So now we're going to attempt to launch it again, this time on the 28th of March. So yes, this is Typhoon Logistics module number 2. So what I did do is I did go into the vehicle assembly building. I did do a few of my own edits just so that we could actually get all the RCS working on this thing, making it a lot easier to control so that we can actually dock it to Community Station. So there we go, we can see Community Station coming into view now. This thing took a really long time to slow down using one AJ10 190 engine. That is also something that I did have to change, because originally the engine that was on this was an AJ10 Advanced, and well, the burn time for that engine was over 600 seconds, and it only has a rated burn time of 450, so I did have to go in and alter that as well. But there you go. We can see we are now coming to Community Station, and we are just about to dock. Now we're going to move on to the second outsourcing launch of Community Station. This is going to be LCI Core Leg on the 29th of March 1970. just a day after we launched the Typhoon Logistics module. This is, of course, being launched on an Adventurer 2, and this was submitted by Experimental Shells over on the Discord. So this, once again, it's just a launch into low Earth orbit. You can see we have achieved our orbit now. There goes our launch vehicle, screaming back towards the sun as we attempt to deorbit it. I also did have to make a few slight edits to this as well. Originally, this craft did have some Super Dracos on it to actually perform all of its orbital maneuvers. However, I am still a very long way off of unlocking the Super Dracos, so yeah, I had to change those to the advanced Gemini lander engines. Another issue I had with this craft as well, I ran out of communications a lot of the time because the antenna band that was on the avionics was a VHF antenna, very high frequency, rather than a UHF antenna, which is what my communications network uses in low Earth orbit. So that was also a bit of a bummer. There we go. We have started work on Community Station. Now we are gonna turn once again to another Typhoon logistics module, this time on the 27th of April 1970. Same again, this is going to be launched on top of a modified Tranquility launch vehicle. So the reason why I wanted to launch another one of these, well, I kind of saw the station and I kind of saw how the logistics module fit, and I thought, you know, it'd be really cool if we put another one of these exactly opposite. So it's all mirrored and all symmetry, and you know, so it looks rather nice, it looks rather pleasing. But there we go, we have made it into orbit once again. With this logistics module, there comes the Community Station screaming into view now. We are going to fly past it just a little bit because it turns out I'm not very good at slowing down when the burn times, well, they last about 4 minutes to slow down 80 meters per second. So it took a little bit of time, a little bit of fiddling around, a little bit of maneuvering to actually get within range of the station, so that we could go and turn on our docking autopilot and let the wonderful MacJeb actually finish this docking for us. There we go. As I said, this is going to be placed on the opposite side of the station, so everything is nice and symmetrical. And there we go. We are going to be docking now. So after that, we are going to be going to Venus. This is going to be our high-scan altimetry scanner, launched on the 14th of May 1970, on top of an Adventurer 1. Probably the smallest launch vehicle that I use at the moment, and it's nice that this launch vehicle actually gets a use. There we go, we have made it into orbit with this scanner. So this is, of course, the spacecraft that I did build earlier on in the episode. The one that I really wanted to be launched on top, well, not even on top, inside a longsword, but unfortunately it was just slightly too big. But there we go, we have performed our trans-Venus injection, and also you can kind of see the city lights there for the first time. So I have downloaded the new, I think I'm gonna say this right, Jesus Rodriguez RVE, I think. But yeah, no, it adds city lights and it does look rather nice. But there we go, we're gonna orbit Venus in 206 days. So now we're going to turn to another cool egg, this time launched on the 24th of May 1970. Once again on an Adventurer 2 launch vehicle. The Adventurer launch vehicles are really coming into their own now. We have seen a lot of use of them. So obviously there were two other modules to Community Station that I did want to launch in this episode. Unfortunately, I was not able to launch either of them. That was the Phantom module submitted by CJB, and of course, the Corzina Habitation module submitted by Ash. And, well, the reason why I couldn't launch those is, once again, I did not have the technology. They both utilized the Cupola module, which I had to, well, fast track my research to actually get that. Now we're going to be turning to the last launch of 1970 Part 1. This is Longsword Anduril, launched on the 5th of June 1970. Longsword Anduril. This is a brand new longsword. No, this isn't a repeat flight, so this is going to be the first flight of this shuttle. So, in the last episode, obviously, I launched Excalibur a couple of times. The feedback that I got from that is that people wanted to see a little bit more of the shuttle in action. So now we're going to be treated to a whole whopping 5.5 minutes of Longsword Anduril in action. And I mean, there is quite a bit that's going to be going on with this launch. So, the crew on board this shuttle is going to be Phil. We have our Director of Lunar Operations. We have Astros on board as well. And we also have Cohen Force on here too. So, what I wanted to do with this shuttle was, we can see we have that orbital flight with at least 3 crew. And we are going to be trying to attempt to complete that contract. So we had to actually raise our apogee and our perigee to above 300,000 meters, which is what I am doing right now. There we go. We can see we have completed that. So we're going to keep this shuttle in orbit for the next 8 days in this orbit just to fulfill that contract. There we go, we can see we have placed it in an orientation where those solar panels on top are going to be able to catch as much of the sun as they possibly can, giving us power. Now, there is something about that power. Well, unfortunately, those solar panels aren't enough to recharge the batteries when we're on the day side of the planet, so this shuttle can't last the full 90 days that originally I wanted it to be able to do. So we are probably going to have to make a few edits to this at some point in the future. But now what we are doing is we are coming over to visit Community Station. We're not going to dock to it because we currently don't actually have a docking port that is capable of taking on a longsword shuttle, but we're going to park it a little bit close to the station, and we are going to get one of our crew members out to actually go and visit the station, go and do all of the necessary required checks to make sure that everything is going well. Obviously, this station has been put up by an automated process so far, so we're going to get a bit of Kerbal interaction. We're going to send over one of our brave astronauts just to slam themselves into the side of the station accidentally there, but you know, he is doing all of his necessary checks, and he's got a long checklist that he's going down to make sure that everything is absolutely fine with the station. After having done that, of course, we are going to return to the shuttle, and then we are going to start bringing it down back to Earth. This is also a test to make sure that we can actually bring the shuttle down from a height well where it's going to be used. Obviously, we are going to be going to Community Station, which is at a 450 kilometer orbit, so we need to make sure that this does work. But there we go, we are now re-entering Earth's atmosphere, and like I did say, the main reason why we brought this down when I did is because, well, we were running out of batteries very quickly. We did manage to last almost 21 days in orbit though, so almost 3 weeks. So I forgot to mess around with the fuel on the way back down, so the shuttle wasn't pointing up as quite as much as I would have liked it to. And I obviously left our supplies on board, which shouldn't be on there when I attempt to land this thing. So we did have to ditch those whilst we were re-entering, which was what that explosion was. So nothing too much to worry about. Now, talking of targeted landings now, we are getting a little bit closer to Cape Canaveral. We have actually managed to come down over America this time. We are going to be landing in the United States, I think somewhere in Texas, if my United States geography doesn't get away from me. I think this is Texas. I might be wrong, but yes, very close to the Gulf of Mexico. There you go, we can see we are now coming down, and we landed a lot faster than I did the last couple of times landing this at around 100 meters per second. But it's okay, those wheels can definitely take those kinds of speeds. We're coming down now, and there we go, we have touched down on the grasslands of Texas. And yeah, we're just gonna roll and bring this thing to a complete stop. So now, at the very end of this episode, well, there is another vehicle assembly building section that I did want to include, and this was done at some point in 1970. So this wasn't done right at the end of 1970. I can't entirely remember when I did this, but this is kind of just a test run, a kind of concept idea that I want to play around with. So this is going to be called the Ecms Shuttle, and ideally what this is going to be is we are going to dock this craft to the new community station, and then what we will do is we will send up a longsword to dock with community station. The crew will then board this Ecms shuttle, and then we will send this shuttle over to Ecms. And what I have done is I have tried to give this shuttle about 8,500 meters per second of delta V on it. Now, the reason why I kind of figured out that's how much I would want is, well, it's 3,150 meters per second to get to the moon. It's then another 800 to capture, maybe about 100 meters per second at the moon to perform a rendezvous with the Ecms. And then what we want the rest of it for is to actually get back to Earth and to capture in a low Earth orbit so we can once again rendezvous with community station. So this thing is going to be entirely reusable. The engine that we have on there at the moment is an advanced OTV engine from the Changing History mod, from CH4 mod, and that has unlimited ignitions. It doesn't have a failure rate at the moment, and it is a very overpowered engine. It has an ISP of, I think, around 492 in vacuum. It is a very good engine. There we go. We can see I'm just creating a couple of service modules now. What we're going to do is we are going to fill those up with food, water, and oxygen. We have about 20 days worth of life support on this shuttle, which is more than enough to get us over to the moon, to actually capture at the moon, and then to perform any rendezvousing that we need to do with the Ecms, and then, of course, also getting our astronauts back. So I want this to be a completely reusable shuttle. I've already mentioned that, but ideally, now our trips to the moon are going to be completely reusable with this. We will use the actual longsword shuttle to get us up into orbit, which is, of course, mostly reusable, except for that external tank. Then we will use this to actually perform our translunar injection. This is going to be entirely reusable. All we need to do is fill it up with hydrolox every time that we want to send it back over. And then, well, we get to the Ecms, and then we've got our reusable lunar lander. So we now have, if this all works, and once I put it at the community station, we now have a completely reusable lunar lander program, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to try and do in Realism Overhaul, and to be honest, I don't think it would have been possible without the Changing History mod. So that is definitely a mod that I would highly recommend. It is great, the developers are great, and yeah, no, it's very exciting. There are a lot of exciting developments coming for that mod, hopefully in the near future, that I am very much looking forward to. There we go. That is the Ecms shuttle, and hopefully we will see that in action some point soon. So that is the end of 1970 Part 1. And obviously now we are just at our crew recovery screen because, like I said, that vehicle assembly building section was placed out of order. I can't exactly remember where that was supposed to be in the order of things, but yeah, it was a bit messed up. It was a bit messed up. But anyway, as I was saying, that is the end of 1970 Part 1. So, next to come up in 1970 Part 2, well, we are going to be finishing work on Community Station. So that's something to look forward to. If you have enjoyed this episode, why not give it a like? If you have really enjoyed this episode and would like to continue with the content on my channel, please do consider subscribing. I have been Carnasa, and I will see you later.